Welcome back to my channel. This is Megan with Charlotte Mason Minimalist, and we're going to be talking today about geography curriculum for our 2020-2021 year. So, let me start with saying that our geography this year will consist primarily of the 50 states, and the main curriculum that we are using for this year, which I have shared, is A Gentle Feast. So, we're not following this exactly as prescribed. I guess I never really do. I kind of make my own twist on everything and I use what resources we have. And that's one of the reasons that am a self proclaimed Charlotte Mason minimalist, is that I just do what works for us in our household. And I had some specific things I kind of wanted to cover that were a little bit different than how Julie scheduled in here, and she did a wonderful job of scheduling. And if you are new to the Charlotte Mason method, I would highly encourage you to just grab this resource and go with it. Right here, we are in Form 1, and we're in Form 1 but in grade 3. So the specific things that she would have us doing would be going through and studying the states and using a poetry book, and we are actually doing both of those things. But I added a little bit to it, and that's because there are specific things that I had, resources, and things that my daughter was interested in. The way Julie schedules it would be 2 days a week, and we are going to abide by that. And we're going to try to abide by those time limits, but I'm going to do a little bit of research for my daughter. I'm going to allow her to do a little bit of her own research is what I mean by that. So let me show you the resources we're using. I put this together at Staples. This came from the Adventures in U.S. History curriculum from My Father's World second or third grade year. I had purchased this to use with my daughter in second grade, and that just didn't happen. We didn't get to it. We did a lot of other things, and we thought we were going to cover this later in the year, and when we never got to it and we got going into third grade, there was a lot more I wanted to cover, and I kind of wanted to dig deeper. Now again, if you are a first-time homeschooler, My Father's World is an amazing curriculum. And even if you're not, if you have a lot of children or in this season you need somebody to lay everything out for you, this is a great resource. I, however, didn't necessarily need it and didn't love the planning for our specific situation and for my specific child. So what I chose to do was bind the specific sheets here. Something on this one. To bind these. I think it's a piece of toast. My daughter just made toast on the counter. So to bind the specific sheets, and they're done in the order that they were added. So the first state, Delaware, is the first state we come to. And all I did, I took those student sheets that are not bound and took them in and had them bound. And this has did you know facts, the history, and other resources throughout this. And so what she's going to do is she's going to be coloring these. And kind of this is going to be an afternoon thing for her to do on her own. I'm not really scheduling this in to our planner. It's just something that she wants to do. And so I have all of these. They're all the state flags and their stickers, and that also came with this. So she can put these in this corner up here. So that is this resource, and I'm kind of treating it more like a coloring book, and as she does research, she can go through this and use it and find out information about the states. So this isn't really something that's just her main geography curriculum. I'm treating it more as a nice resource to use alongside what we're studying. Now I also had this on the shelf, and this is very similar. This is the State Birds and Flowers. So I want to encourage anybody that wants something like what I just showed you to look into something like this. Now, there are other U.S. geography resource coloring books from Dover. It's not just flowers and birds that have the states in the specific way that I just showed you, and that My Father's World sheet guide thing that I had bound there. You can also purchase those in Dover coloring books. Usually won't run only around like $4 or $5. This one will not be colored by my daughter, more than likely. I think this may just be something that I sit alongside her and use as a resource and color myself as she's working through her binder, not binder, but her spiral bound states in the afternoon. We like to do things like that side by side. So another resource from My Father's World that we're using alongside our curriculum is this is just a large map. And then we have stickers. And so I'm just going to rip this out, and this is going to be in our cart. And these stickers are just all of the states. And as we're working through them, through the schedule of them in A Gentle Feast, she will just pull these out and put them where they go. And this is the map of the United States sticker picture guide. So that's a resource we'll be using this year also. The main resource scheduled through A Gentle Feast is My American Geo Journey. And so she's just going to write that. And a lot of this is research-based as well. And so she can use her 50 States book from My Father's World that I made for her as she's doing some of this research. And so this is really teaching geography. It has things like map vocabulary, draw a compass rose, all these different things, draw the lines of longitude and the lines of latitude. There's a lot of information here that we need to work through ourselves anyway. So this is scheduled. It's not super thick. It's definitely will all get completed this year, but this is something scheduled with A Gentle Feast that we will be working through. So I have a lot of atlases sitting here, and I kind of want to go through and explain what I'm using them for and what they are. This one is the Rand McNally Atlas of American History. Now, I won't necessarily be using this with our geography curriculum, the choices that I made this year. This will be a resource used alongside U.S. history over the next few years. And so this is geography, though, so I wanted to bring it up as I talk about geography today. So there's just a lot here. We're starting the year in history with Leif the Lucky, and as you can see right here, this is a map that shows the probable route of the Vikings. And this is Marco Polo. I'm trying to see. I know we have some that have, that's John Cabot. Christopher Columbus is somewhere in here, which obviously that'll be an important one that we'll be studying this year, because we're studying all of the exploration. So this goes much deeper. If I just jump ahead, this is like the expansion. I'm just kind of wanting to jump around a little bit and show you some of the different things that are shown later. There's just a lot of information in this atlas, and I picked this up for $1 at the thrift store, and it's historical geography, so it's not something that's like gonna be changed a lot. And I felt like it's a little bit older, but it's definitely something we'll use over the next few years of American history to help plot some of that. Now, this next resource is another that was recommended from A Gentle Feast. It's My America, a poetry atlas of the United States. And so this is poetry for each state. So as we're reading through and working through our geography for the year, like this is Vermont. See, this is Boston Harbor, so it's probably Massachusetts history. And so as we work through this book, through our curriculum, we will work through this book based off of the state that we're working on, and that's another resource from A Gentle Feast. This one is Our 50 States, A Family Adventure Across America by Lynn Cheney, and I had just received this from Rainbow Resources. This is another that was part of A Gentle Feast. So this is just two examples of states. Here we have West Virginia and we have North Carolina on these pages I opened to. And you see there's a lot of drawings, I believe watercolor used here, and it just is a way that brings out highlights of that state and makes it kind of exciting for kids. And I intend on my daughter reading this on her own. And so this is part of that research I'm describing that I'm going to implement this year. Definitely not teacher-led. This wouldn't be necessarily considered a living book in the sense of most Charlotte Mason curriculum, but this is something that she can pick up and research and figure out exactly what that state's about, things that are interesting to her there, and kind of get her own passion for learning the geography of the area. And then we do take usually at least a vacation a year, and usually in the United States, and so we live in the Midwest, and so this will be fun as we take vacations that she can find things that are interesting to her, and maybe we can make trips to some of them. So that's something I was really excited about this year. I have a couple more atlases. This I picked up the other day at the thrift store for 50 cents. It wasn't a planned purchase. It's just kind of goes along. Each state has its own section, so it tells you what the state bird, has the state flag picture, shows you where it is, their tree and their flower, and it also has information. The thing that probably wouldn't be accurate in this would be their population, because this is an older book, but it has a basic outline of the cities. I just thought this would be a nice book, again, to go on the shelf for her research time. And she can reference that as well as she's coloring her pictures. So, like these birds, they're pretty accurately illustrated. She will be able to use that as she colors her birds and her My Father's World state book accurately. Now, this is the resource, the Atlas Recommended from A Gentle Feast from Julie, and this is the Kids United States Atlas from National Geographic Kids. So this is a little bit more in depth. It's kind of the same idea, but there are real pictures, and there's actually a little bit of a storyline. So this is what the main thing that I guess would be recommended for her to do her research with this year. And sorry about that, the camera. She probably will use this as her main resource, but again, I just kind of wanted to give her some different options and some different things to look at and use and to explore as we work through geography this year. I do believe in the Charlotte Mason idea of like using the best resources there are, but I loved all of these and I didn't think any of them were hindersome to have on hand. So we're definitely going to be seeing how that goes with this. Now, this is something that actually was scheduled for a little bit younger geography, but we had just moved back to Ohio from another state, and we are going to dabble. I originally planned on using the second grade geography, which was more focused on just typical geography skills. So I started it a little early over the summer and realized I don't think I really need to spend a whole year on those ideas and topics. I thought I might. And that was using, I believe it's the Long's Geography. And you can get that as a free resource because it's an older book. And that's what I did. And I printed it off and bound it myself. And then as we were working through, I realized I don't need to use that for the whole year. But this, we kind of would have focused in the middle of the year on just our state. And so I had already purchased this book. And what I intend to do, they have these for every state and also other topics. So what I intend to do with this book, we plan on just going through, and this has like actual information about a specific thing that you can, usually a visit or a field trip you could have. For instance, E for Erie, like we could make a trip to Lake Erie. So there's like basic text over here that can be read, but then there's also, J is for John Chapman or Johnny Appleseed. R is for roller coaster at Cedar Point and Sandusky. So there's lots of trips we could take based off of this. And so I intend probably just reading through this a few times, doing some basic state studies. I also have some books on the state of Ohio and some books on the city of Columbus and some books on some of the local, books on the city of Cincinnati, books on the city of Cleveland, books on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base here in Ohio. So I have like a little section of a shelf just about Ohio, and we intend on reading through some of that this year and really kind of maybe even taking a week or two off from our main study of geography and just spending on the state, and probably taking lots of field trips. I don't want to say probably because I know we will, and that'll be a fun part of our year. So this resource here, I purchased, this is actually a Christmas present for my daughter last year, and this is the National Parks of the U.S., and we've read some of this. As we worked through North American animals last year, we did a study of animals that we took and worked through geography into that for second grade, and we studied the habitats in all the different continents. So as we worked through that animal study specifically in America, we used this resource to look at some of the animals, and I love the pictures. It's beautifully illustrated, and we have spent a couple of our vacations in the Smoky Mountains, and we did a wonderful drive this spring going from Gatlinburg through to Cherokee and spent a lot of time driving through Tennessee and North Carolina and through the specific park and visited a lot of the main areas there. So that was really fun. And we looked through this book before we did that trip. And so as we do our 50 states, this will be nice to kind of study the geography, the animals, and the habitats of the different states that are highlighted by these national parks. So that's definitely something that we plan on doing this year. Another Christmas present from last year for my daughter was the 50 states. She's really into fun books like this. She loves nice illustrations, things that are really visually appealing. Both of us definitely are visual learners, so anything that stands out and makes you look at it, those are things that are good for us. So we love to read, but things that just have this beautiful art feel to them really draw us in. So something like this is just exactly what makes us tick and makes us excited about education, and that's always important to me. So that's another resource. And again, those are not something that's scheduled. Our main schedule will follow the schedule of A Gentle Feast and do it in a way that we're going to use those resources and those atlases and all of the wonderful things I have here. So let me talk a little bit about some flashcards I purchased. Now, we're not a flashcard family, but I did buy these a couple years ago. And then I picked 2 more packs up that are very similar. These are from Target. And I had thought these, I mentioned in another video, I had thought that these were like, the back wasn't going to have information and we could maybe play memory or something with it. Well, that's not the case. And so now I have 3 sets of these cards that are like, they're just states and information about the state. I don't know how we're going to use those. I don't believe we'll use them as like flashcards. That's not something that I'm a fan of. It's not something my daughter is a fan of, just going through and randomly doing flashcard facts. Maybe a game. That's what I'm thinking. My daughter and I maybe can think of like a game or something fun to do with them. And if you have any ideas on that, comment below, because I'm kind of at a loss, but I know my daughter's pretty creative and can probably come up with something. But I have 3 stacks of these sitting here that I would like to utilize. Now, these are a little different. These are flashcards that again, My Father's World, Adventures in U.S. History curriculum, and these are state, bird, and flower flashcards. So there's nothing on the back. They're just done on cardstock, and I bought this nice little flashcard holder from Target to put them inside of, and we'll probably use these as we color to have, these are obviously done in colored pencil, and that's probably what we'll be using in our book of our states and birds. So I'll probably allow her to use these for that also if she wants to. And the other thing is we can look through and kind of, there's some different games and things I had in mind to do with these. So that's one resource. So the next few resources I want to explain. They take a little bit more explanation. They're not necessarily books. I picked these up. These are large if you compare them to a pack of flashcards. This is a large map. These maps are blank. They're about the size of like a placemat. Sorry, I just had like a brain freeze there. I couldn't think of what I was trying to say. So about the size of a placemat. There's 30 of them and they're blank, and the back also has a blank map, but it lists the U.S. states and capitals. So what my daughter is probably going to do with these is more of what you would do in the Charlotte Mason method. I kind of wanted to break that down real fast since we're talking about what we're doing for geography. So she'll get a blank map on week 1. Maybe week 2. I might not jump right into this on week 1. And she will fill in what she knows. And I don't know if I'm going to actually have her write it, or maybe she'll tell me and I'll write them in. Just to, that's a lot of writing to write out the 50 states. So she'll tell me what she knows. And then what she doesn't know, we'll use some of these atlas books and we will fill in those other states. Now, I may just start with the colonies. I may just start with the Midwest where we live and work out from there. But each week, then we'll fill in everything else. And then each week I will give her a fresh map and let her fill in what she remembers that she knows, and then what she doesn't fill in that's blank. This is not like a test or a grade. What she doesn't know, I will help her and show her what the rest of them are, and we'll use atlases and things to fill that in. And that'll be a fun way to do drill. Maybe it won't be fun. I don't know yet how it's going to look, but I know that that's how I want to teach it, and it's a way to drill that's not a test. It's just to see like where we are, and then that'll help us see the progress, because if we started at the beginning of the year, I don't know what she's going to know. I know that we've played games and done things with the states, but I've never really done anything to see where she's actually at and what she knows. I'm assuming she knows a few of them. I know she probably knows Florida, Texas, Ohio, because we lived there, probably Tennessee, because we lived there for a long time. So I'm assuming that's kind of where we're at, and we'll go from there. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we'll see that progress, and we'll have all of these sheets I'll save to show that progress. So that was a great resource I found at Target. Those are Carson DeLosa, and I think I only paid $5 for them. Now, these are games. This one is the Scrambled States of America. We've played this one quite a bit. It's a really fun game. It's a card game, really. And there's a book that goes with it. We actually have the larger version of that same book. And you have a map. The way it works is you have cards that are your cards. These are the state cards, and each person has their own like little stack of these states. I think you have 5 states, and as the other cards get flipped over, the red cards, you have to try to match up your state to what that card says. So let me just do an example of one. This one is a state that has more vowels than consonants. So sometimes it's just fun things like the name. And so you would find a state that has more vowels than consonants. And if you have one, you have to slap it and get it on there first. And that's how that works. But it does help you to kind of remember the states. And so it's just fun. It's not really a drill game, but that's something we'll be using. Now, this game I haven't even opened up. So we do intend on playing this year. It's called Great States. Test your knowledge of state landmarks, state locations, and state capitals. It's for 2 to 6 players, and it's ages 7 and up. I picked it up for $2 at the thrift store recently, and we haven't even tried it yet. So I will talk a little bit more about that once we actually get it in play, since I haven't even opened the game yet. It's very heavy, though, so I'm not even sure what's inside. I'm assuming lots of cards. So this map, for some reason, is missing New Hampshire. I'm sure it's probably down in our puzzle area somewhere. And this is a wooden puzzle. It's not the greatest in accuracy, but just it's a nice thick puzzle, and it has the capitals underneath. So this is something fun for my daughter. She's had this since preschool, and she's actually, I think, knew her states maybe a little bit better when she was like 3 or 4, but we kind of didn't focus on them the last few years because we were working more on getting down phonics and math, and we also were focusing specifically in geography more on world culture, and we were focusing on ancient history last year. So we haven't done a lot of United States work since then. And so this will be interesting to see what she remembers from that map, because it's kind of just sat on the shelf for the last couple years, and I'm assuming we'll use it again. This hasn't been opened. I believe I purchased this when I purchased Adventures in U.S. History from My Father's World, and it's just a floor map. It's a Melissa and Doug floor map that we probably will use in our afternoon time this year, right along with all those research things, all these games we'll be playing. These are afternoon topics. These, like I said, I'm kind of adhering to that 20-minute geography schedule of our actual scheduled day, but I know, knowing my daughter, knowing me, knowing what we do, some of these things are going to be used. I have an only child. She doesn't necessarily always just run off and play. We do go outside and spend a lot of afternoon time outside. We work on handcrafts, but we have a lot of time, and so some families might not have that. So I don't want you to think you need to use all these resources, because for us, we have an abundance of time, being that I am a stay-at-home mom and I have 1 child. So I don't have a lot of outside obligations, and we have a lot of time just to spend together, and I'm enjoying that in this season. So I want you to remember that all of this isn't necessary. This is what we're using. And so if you see something here that sparks your interest or you think your child, like, that's why I'm showing you these things, not to say, hey, you should do all of this. So this is another one. And my daughter's had this one for quite a while. And this shows more of like the topographical map. It shows where there are mountains. And this is also Melissa and Doug map. And I believe a friend of mine bought this for her for Christmas when she was starting kindergarten. And we used it some, and it is similar, but it's a little different. It has a little bit more of like industry, and it's different. That's really all it is. Instead of it being a political map like the other map is, this shows more of how the landscape is. So both of those will be fun to do, and it kind of helps you to understand that just because you drive into the next state doesn't mean that everything's going to look different right at the border. I remember thinking that when I was a little kid, like, I'm going to drive into the next state. It's going to be completely different as soon as we cross and see that. And we happen to live on a border between Kentucky and Tennessee for about 5 years, and there was absolutely no difference. After we lived there for a few years, you really couldn't tell a difference. I wouldn't even remember which state I was in sometimes. So this is our My Father's World map, and this will probably be a map we look to a lot. It's a placemat size map. It's going to be right in our dining room with us, and it also has the world map, and it's Christian based. So My Father's World is a Christian based curriculum, so it has a verse here that says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, for he founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters." That's Psalm 24, 1 and 2 in the NIV version. And I love that it has that there, because as we're studying geography, it gives us that reminder of what we're studying. We're studying the Lord's masterpiece in his creation, and we're studying the cultures within it today. So that has to be a part of our geography studies. We have to include culture in that. So the last thing I have is a resource that this is. It looks like a little piece of a map. This is a massive wet erase map. I don't even know if I can fit the whole thing in here, but it's two-sided, and it's a two-sided map that we have some wet erase writings that need erased from it from our sunlight studies from last year. I'm sorry if this is making a lot of noise, but this is the world side. And so if we have to, reference anything from the world, I'm sure we will use that again. Sorry, I'm showing all my craziness in my house probably. But this map will get used this year as well. And so how we used that in the past is we would pull it out, we would look something up. So I'll just kind of hone in right here. We did a lot of work in Egypt last year. So you see, we have the Mediterranean Sea marked in Egypt, the Valley of the Kings, Canaan. So as we study different things, we erased this and wrote on it over and over and over again, kind of in the same format of what I'm using with the blank United States maps. And I would erase everything and be like, so where's Egypt again? Like, look at the world map. Where's Egypt? And we did stuff like that. This is where we had studied Canada as we worked through. Sorry, I'm trying to get my light off of there. This is where we had worked through Canada as we had studied through Owls in the Family, and we mapped some of Canada, and we kind of went back to that again and again to remember, like, where's Saskatoon? Like, my daughter was really into that book. So that is our main geography curriculum for the year. I want to note that as we work through this My Father's World, we will be utilizing a couple of more resources from My Father's World. And what those are going to be are in the back. There's an awesome book list. So if you are looking for just a geography curriculum for that's just going to cover U.S. geography this year, that is an awesome resource. The back of it has a book list, and it has every state. There's books listed that you can use along with it. And so let me encourage you as a Charlotte Mason homeschooler that you have to make a connection to that geography, because just drilling will not be effective. And for my daughter being the age she is, usually you wouldn't start until like maybe 9 or 10, but she's a pretty advanced 8-year-old that's going on 9, and I honestly, in almost most things, she's more at a fourth grade level. So I'm confident in a relaxed manner introducing those maps will not be harmful. And if I find that it seems like she's just really not enjoying it and we're having a hard time, I'll stop. So I don't want you to feel like you have to do map drilling. Something, in my opinion, that's better is just to make connections to those states, to understand what you're looking at. And that's why those atlases from A Gentle Feast, she recommended using those atlases. My Father's World in the back has a book guide to go along with the states, and I'll probably try to at least pick one book per state to go in my daughter's afternoon basket time, which all of those resources, that's what our main afternoon basket focus is going to be this year's geography. We're just going to read about fun geography things, do games, do puzzles, maybe make up some things with those flashcards, do some research together, do our coloring pages for the states we're working on. That's going to be a lot of our afternoon focus when we're actually working on work. That's not going to be every day. A lot of days we're just going to spend outside playing at the park. A lot of days we're going to do nature study. So I just want to encourage you to make a connection. Your children will remember the state or the area or what it's like if they make a connection to it. That's why we used animals last year for our geography study. Sunlight had an awesome geography study we did last year as part of their science. It wasn't even called their geography, but it was an animal science for second grade level in Science B, and we had an awesome year with that because my daughter connected with the animals in the regions and the habitats, and so she would remember this animal is from South America and lives in the rainforest in Brazil. She would remember things like that and remembered and could put together that that's where the rainforest was and this is the continent South America and Brazil is in that continent, all because she remembered an animal that lived there. So if obviously a lot of times the older you get, the more you learn about culture and connect with people. My daughter was 7 at the time and really she's always connected with animals. So whatever you can do to connect a child to that local area, that's what I will want to encourage you to do today. So remember, for us, A Gentle Feast is our main curriculum. We're supplementing with My Father's World because that's what we have. If you have any questions, just comment below. I will also say that I want to note this here because I'm probably going to get this question. If you're wondering why I'm doing A Gentle Feast and My Father's World, and I'm telling you not to do those things, especially if you're a first-time homeschooler, I just wasn't comfortable with only doing surface level history this year. I wanted to dig deeper. And I liked that in A Gentle Feast, this is more Charlotte Mason based, how she digs deeper in this time period. So if you notice, this is American history from 1000 to 1680 AD, which happens to be exploration, the American colonies, and Native Americans. My husband specifically requested that I find a curriculum that covered Native Americans this year because he's a history major and really wants to focus on that time period for our school. So I looked for something that we could do that, and I noticed that we had My Father's World on the shelf and it was only covering Native American history for a week or two, and we wanted to just dig deeper in that. Now, my daughter knows a lot of the key players in American history that we were going to cover with My Father's World. She knew who George Washington was, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, so she knows who Christopher Columbus is, but we just wanted to do it in a way that we dug deeper into each of those topics, and that's what a Gentle Feast was giving us. But we also wanted to cover that U.S. geography in a little bit more depth. And so I just decided to hang on to My Father's World and kind of just use it alongside the geography program and the geography schedule that A Gentle Feast has. So we are following the schedule of A Gentle Feast, but not to a T. And we're going to have all these resources to use together. So I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. Let me know what you're doing for geography this year, specifically if you're doing U.S. geography. Comment below and let me know what you guys are using, what resources you've tried, and just what tried and true methods you have for teaching geography. Don't forget to subscribe and like. I hope you guys have a good year.